Alrighty, so VoiceMeeter Banana. Uh, pretty complex application. A lot of people struggle with this thing. I did as well. I thought that I should just make a video and kind of show people how a virtual audio mixing software works. It is quite similar to a real one. I do have about 4-ish years experience with that type of hardware. They're complex. If you don't know what you're doing and you're just looking at it the first time, it's daunting. You're gonna get frustrated. I feel your pain. So that's why I'm here to help, hopefully. So a few things to get out of the way before we dive into it is you are going to, I'm assuming you are watching this video because you want to play a video game, stream, something along those lines, play music through your headset without having echo, with essentially having it piggyback through your communications device. Why you would want to do this, it's just the better option, you know. Instead of, you know, blasting a speaker in the background or holding your phone up to your mic, something like that, you just get so much more freedom of ability with a virtual soundboard. I shouldn't say soundboard, mixing software, excuse me. And another one of these applications will be downloading Ear Trumpet. I just highly recommend that you have it in Windows. It is essentially just a better mixing software for Windows. Really nice. I'll be showing you that as well. So yeah, let's get into it. So to begin with, I want to just kind of briefly explain what a mixing board is, what it does, what all these different aspects are. It's a lot, but there's only really a few things you need to know. Our hardware out right here. Okay, so this is more than likely what you want to begin with. Don't do anything before you watch this entire video. You're gonna lose audio the minute you start messing with these type of settings, so just watch the full video, gain of understanding of how to use this application, and then feel free to just open it up and kind of follow what I do, what I explain. If you remember, feel free to pause it, write it down. I'm gonna go nice and slow, but let's begin. Hardware out. These 3 channels right here, these 3 channels I'll correlate to A1, A2, and A3. Same with our buses right here. It's our virtual inputs. I highly recommend that for now, you just use A1. So on A1, you're going to select whatever device you are hearing audio with. This cable input, that is another thing we're going to be using, but you want to select whatever device you hear your system sound from, okay? We need to make that distinction. Alright, let me get WDM speaker. That is my Astro 810s. So we have our hardware out set, A1, our A1 bus. That is where all of our audio, all of our everything we input to VoiceMeeter is going to end up into our speakers. Okay, it's going to get a little confusing, but it's important to make that distinction now. That is our headset. So, our headset is set. We can ignore our virtual inputs for now. We'll just leave those as they are. We'll explain these. Come over here, stereo input 1. Our stereo inputs are, we have virtual inputs here. These are physical inputs for our stereo input 1, and then air quotes, physical input for our cable output. I will explain that briefly here in a minute. So, stereo input 1, click on this, again, WDM. This is whatever you use as your communications device, okay? If you have a just standard headset. This would be the microphone, whatever that input is. A, you know, snowball, any type of microphone like that. You're gonna set that as the input here, okay? WDM, your input. Perfect. Alrighty, and again, just all these options here, leave them for now. We'll explain everything as we go through it. We're just setting the basics up, setting the framework. So, stereo input to cable output. What is that? Okay, what is cable output? I'll show you this cool application called, yep, right one. It's called Virtual Audio Device, VB Cable. What this is a virtual audio cable, as the name implies. What that does is, as this little diagram shows, is it allows you to set an input and an output for different audio applications on your Windows device or your Mac. Really cool. Let's take a look at this. Another application you are going to want to get before you do this is Ear Trumpet. Again, I was explaining that earlier. It's just a enhanced audio mixer, if you will, for Windows. But we will need this to detect Spotify and set a input for it. Alright, and again, VoiceMeeter Banana Mixer. This is the website you want to go to. I will link all these in the description, don't worry. But right there, that's the guy you want. Again, extract your zip package, download, set all that good stuff. I would recommend downloading all three of these applications and then restarting your PC before you start. So if you want to go do those, open this video back up and then get back to this spot. I'll wait for a second here and let you all get caught back up. Alrighty. So now that we have those applications and we have our framework set, what do we need to do? Alright. How Ear Trumpet works is it detects the active audio applications on your Windows device, i.e. Spotify in this instance. On copyright, woohoo. So you need to have whatever application you are going to be playing music from, open and playing music while you do this. Okay, so you need to be having music playing on your device. You are going to come down here to Ear Trumpet. Yours will look more than likely a little bit different than mine. Don't worry. You're going to find wherever Spotify is in this list, whatever application you're using, Apple Music, YouTube Music, SoundCloud, anything like that. You're going to right click on it. And you're going to hit this icon, and then you are going to select cable input for your virtual audio cable. A thing to note with virtual audio cable is you can donate as little as like $1, I think it is, and you can get up to 3 virtual audio cables. Really cool. I don't need that right now, but I do plan on donating when I get the extra funds for it a little bit more, because it is a really cool application and they do some pretty awesome stuff here. So we right click this, set this to our cable input for Spotify, and we are good. So to explain what this is doing, just to kind of make it make sense, we have Spotify going into our input. Our input is then going to go into VoiceMeeter. We put it to our input 2 and we set this to cable output. Okay, so cable output is the output for our cable input here, which is Spotify. So this is how it's essentially taking a cable, plugging it into Spotify, and hooking it up to VoiceMeeter. That's all it's doing. So we now have our Spotify in our cable output, in our input, along with our voice communications from our headset. So what we're doing now is combining these two inputs into previously the output that we have selected, our headset, our speakers high definition audio, again my Astro A10s. So now when I speak, if I have the buses set and I'm transmitting on the correct bus with both channels, people will hear both my voice and my Spotify and my music application. So you're not done yet. This is just explaining how it's done. To finish setting this up, now we head over to our virtual inputs. Okay, our virtual inputs are what the game you are playing, whatever application you are running, is going to identify as your default device and default communications device. This gets a little bit tricky. A lot of the videos I watched were outdated. There was one a comment actually on one of them I saw. I'll have to maybe go find it and link it if I can. But pointed me in the right direction. Wrong one. You want to come down here to your sound settings. Alrighty. I'm gonna open sound control panel. Alrighty. Close this. So it's gonna be a little confusing. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna go nice and slow with this. We have all of our playback settings here. Okay, this is what we listen to. All right. You remember, playback is your headset. Okay, your surround sound system, your whatever, your Apple headphones, whatever you're listening to. All right. I highly recommend you go through, disable every single option, and then you start with VoiceMeeter aux input, VoiceMeeter auxiliary input. Okay, this is your virtual input on the right. Okay, VoiceMeeter aux input. It's cut off, but it's the same one, trust me. So VoiceMeeter auxiliary input, make sure your virtual inputs are set to output A1 as well, because that is where we want them to go. So VoiceMeeter auxiliary input, this one specifically, VoiceMeeter aux input, we are going to set to the default device and the default communications device. Okay, make sure it's both. Now, with everything else still disabled, we're going to come up here, our cable input, you are going to enable this. Okay, just enable. That's all you want to do. Okay, if you set this to default, it will hijack your virtual input, and then your games will not detect what you are doing. This is strictly for Spotify. Okay, just have this enabled. Same thing with your actual output. All right, you need to have this enabled, but not set to default, so you can physically hear things. Okay, if it's not enabled, it just won't work. It'll be transmitting to it, but you just won't hear anything. It'd be like if it wasn't plugged in. All right, so enabled, not default. Enabled, not default. Enabled and default. All right, this is our voice output, what we hear and what the people in the game are going to hear completed. All right, now our input. Okay, exact same process. Go through, disable every single option. All right, and then we are going to come to VoiceMeeter out B1. All right, this is where it gets confusing. VoiceMeeter ins at whatever this is, all right, is VoiceMeeter out B1. I know it's what they don't look the same. VoiceMeeter has changed this, and they have not updated the actual Windows settings apparently. I'm not too sure what the issue, what the deal with this is. All I know is VoiceMeeter out B1 enabled in default device and your default communications device. You want to make sure it's both, like, with everything else disabled. Remember that, including all your voice meters. Now you come up here. Again, I have a webcam. You can ignore this. Whatever input device you are using, okay? Whatever your headset is, your snowball, a boom mic, anything like that, you want to enable but not have defaulted, okay? Just enabled. Same thing with your cable output, as that's transmitting your music. And then remember to default your out B1, okay? Why we use B1, you can use B2. But if you use B2, just again remember on VoiceMeeter to make sure you are using B2, because it will not work if you do not do that. That's why I just recommend sticking with B1. Just stick with B1 and you'll work. VoiceMeeter out B1. So okay, with that, the whole reason we just did all that in our sound control panel is so that if we now come into Steam, whatever game we are playing, whatever you can physically go through into each game and go into the settings, go into your audio input and output device and manually set it to, again, your VoiceMeeter aux input, and then out B1, not N6, out B1. Or you can follow those steps that I just did, come up here to settings, the voice, and then just default. So with this, it is just your system default to use your VoiceMeeter setup, okay? This is not necessary to go through and to disable everything, but it is highly recommended just to ensure that nothing is hijacking your output, okay? If you have followed these steps correctly and you are not hearing sound, okay, you need to come here. Yes, this one, excuse me. You need to go to your sound settings, open sound control panel, and you need to go through and make sure that everything besides aux input, cable input, and whatever your audio, whatever you are hearing audio with, are disabled. You need to make sure everything else is disabled, and then same thing with recording. Your microphone, whatever, again, my webcam, doesn't really matter, not crazy important. Output, important if you're using for music. And out B1. Everything else, disabled. That, if you are not hearing music, it is because something in here is enabled and it is hijacking your output. Alrighty. With that, we are essentially done. There's a few things just to know, okay? So when you are in a game and you are looking at VoiceMeeter, say you're alt-tabbed or something, to come down here and explain these buttons, okay? These buttons, probably guessed it, directly correlate to those buses that we set for our input and our output, alright? So, excuse me, for our input and our output. Ooh, brain fog. Now, that's what I was wanting to say. Okay, perfect. So, if you do not want to transmit your music over your game, you can come right to here and press B1, okay? Your bus 1, very important to remember this distinction. Your bus 1, your output in your default settings for your Windows settings for VoiceMeeter auxiliary is your game, okay? That is what people in the game are hearing from you, okay? So when this is off, people are not hearing music. When this is on, people are hearing music. You see how that works? Yeah. So, and then again too, with A1, it is the exact same way. If you were to disable A1, let me rephrase that. When you with your input here with your microphone, A1 is your headset, okay? So if I turn this off, I'm not hearing the music anymore, but it's still playing for the video, okay? I'm hearing nothing right now. If I was to swap and turn this guy on, now I'm hearing an echo. We don't like that. You were not hearing an echo, okay? Let me explain this. Why you did not hear the echo, because again, I am transmitting through my headphones, okay? Through what I am hearing in my headphones. Now, why you can hear me and I can hear myself is because it is piggybacking through that microphone. Okay, so essentially what happens when I turn this on is my voice is just looping, and then I get the echo. So we don't want that. We don't want to hear ourselves through our own communications, through what we're transmitting, because that's an echo. But we do want other people to hear us, so we leave this on. Depending on whether or not we want other people to hear our music. In this instance, I want you guys to hear the music, so I have this on. If I want to take the music away, I am a cruel god. There you are. But I'm not hearing music. And now I get to hear music again. Because I'm now transmitting it through my headset. But I'm not transmitting my audio, so there's no echo, and we're all good. And you guys can hear music, I can hear music, and you can hear me. Say I wanna, just I can do that as well. I can just cut myself off to where you're not gonna hear me. Yeah. Alrighty. And again, with our virtual inputs, leave this on A1 and A1 because that is the output we have set. If you decide to get into streaming or something like that, and you want to set up a third input for whatever it is, and you want that to be separate from your game audio, okay, what you would do is simply just come up here, set the input device for whatever that third application would be it a soundboard, whatever, and then you would enable the output for your stream onto A2, okay, and then you would select channels A2 and A2 for your output, because you have these on default. That's the default for all of your applications. And then on this channel, on your input, you would select A2. So it would only be transmitting to bus A2, and then obviously bus 1 as well, because that's your virtual input. Excuse me, dry mouth. But yes, that is how you use VoiceMeeter. Video got a little bit longer than I was hoping for. I've had to re-record it about 3 or 4 times now, just to make sure it's clear and concise. I hope it was. A few more things just to finish up on, a few cool features, and some things that you should do before you finish up and start gaming. Up here we have an equalizer, so each channel gets its own individual equalizer. It's pretty cool, so I can reduce bass, I can add bass. It's very nice. If you have an echo naturally in your room, you can come in here and adjust your light panel, the brightness of your voice, all that good stuff, if you're familiar with how that works. If you are not familiar with how sound works, I highly recommend you just leave that alone. But for your music, yeah, you can go through, give it a little bit more bass, you know, same thing with your soundboard if you want to throw in some, you know, deep fried memes or something like that. It's totally doable. All in this one application. Very, very nice. Again, I'll link Ear Trumpet, VoiceMeeter Banana itself, and virtual audio cables. If you guys want to donate to virtual audio cables, totally up to you. I'm sure they would appreciate it. I'm not paid to say anything like that or anything. It's just a really cool program. I'm thoroughly impressed with it, and I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that it works first try, and that you are able to enjoy this as much as I do. Thank you for watching,